how I got here was literally just to use the smooth tool, which is there. So the fourth one along in this area here. That's literally all I did. Because it subdivides the face. Now, when I did that, I did do some optimization. So I'll do like a little bit of a... Okay. So yeah, if I want to start to smooth this off, so this angle here is a little bit smoother, I can just hit this. Smooth. And we subdivide the surface. Every face gets split into 4. So we're literally we're jumping up exponential, we're cubing our number of faces every time we click that. So now you can see it's very smooth. It's a lot smoother, round like that. Go from there to there, a lot smoother. However, we lose any sharp angles. Like maybe I want to maintain this nice sharp angle here, but obviously when we click smooth, because everything gets smoothed, we lose that angle. So if we were to do that on our object here, what's going to happen is it starts getting really smooth and we lose any nice sharp mechanical angles. Oh my, don't do it. Don't. Oh, there we go. So as we smooth, we lose all those sharp angles. There's a couple of things we do as we're working along. One of them is like a function in Maya, and another one is just it's what we call optimization, especially taking away stuff we don't need. Also, the only other things I've done to this is I don't know if you've done it on yours or not, but just where these two forms meet, I bevel the edge across each one of them, just to give it a tiny bit of separation. And I think that's about it. Yeah. Let's run with this. But yeah, smoothing optimization. This is where I want to kind of get up to in this first stage. Now, I've not actually done any smoothing here, but I've kind of set it up that if I press 3 for that proxy smooth, I get a preview of my smoothing. So if I press 3 on this one on the left, you can see it gets really smooth and kind of like lumpy, as what it was doing over here. It's all smooth and lumpy. So that's kind of giving us an idea what's going to happen there. But on this one here, it's really, really sharp. And those angles are maintained. That's because what I'm doing is I'm going around and I'm creasing edges that I know I want to maintain a sharp edge on. And not creasing angles. I'm not creasing edges, which I don't want to maintain a sharp edge. I will allow them to deform naturally with the smoothing process. And this is super easy. This lives up in mesh tools. And it's literally called the crease tool. So copy this, lift this up. So yeah, I press 3 to get my proxy smooth up. Now obviously I want to keep all the kind of sharp angles that I want, but I don't want to have any of these angles change into the soft smooth. I want these flat faces to say flat as well, but obviously I want to have more smoothness going around. So what I'm going to do is I can do this by in subdiv mode. Come up to mesh tools, crease, and it's going to automatically take you into edge mode because that's the functionary process of this. This is where this tool lives in edge mode. And if I click an edge, for instance, I can just do this, or I could do the entire ring, but I'll just do this one as a demo. I click that edge and I just middle mouse drag in the scene. What I'm doing is I'm applying, I'm starting to apply like a percentage of crease to this one edge here. So you can see it goes from like a very, very thin and kind of, it's got a bit of a curve to it. But as I like just click and middle mouse drag right and left to the right, I start to increase the crease, increase the crease, and you can kind of see how it's kind of coming off the surface there. Now, if I was to do this for the entire ring going around, Well, I just double click it, select the entire ring. Again, middle mouse in the scene. So we just have to crease the entire edge. So we go from that, as we increase it, it starts to crease, 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 up to there. So all the places that I want to have that nice sharp crease, I can go in there and I can be like, okay, I want that one and that one. Nice. And I can leave this one alone if I want to, or if I do want to have that interior sharp edge there, I can also increase that. Here as well, I can be like, oh, well, yeah, obviously I want to have that one, so I'll do that. And yeah, I want that one, and obviously I want the little bevel underneath it as well, so I'll increase them too. And then on the inside, same thing. There we go. So now what it's doing is it's maintaining those angles while still allowing it to smooth around the radius, which is cool. Now when I actually come to do that smoothing, so with that done, I come to do smoothing, I click this. Like I said, for whenever we smooth anything, it'll take a face and it'll divide that face up into 4. So we're gonna times by 4 our current face group, which is 216, so that's going to jump up by 4 times. Like that. So I click this once. So you see there, it's not smoothed at all, and it's maintained those sharp edges. It's super nice. Now, what we would do at this point, you can see here, I've done it here, is every time I add a subdivision, any faces which don't need that new line, that new edge, I'm going to take away that edge. So for instance, this one here, going around the outside, it's not actually doing anything to the surface. It isn't changing it like this or like this. It's just maintaining this straight line. So I can get rid of that. So I can go around and kind of find like, okay, yeah, this one here, this isn't doing anything. I don't want this to change or do anything either, so get rid of that. So we go around, every time we do this, we just go around and find all these edges we want to get rid of. And get rid of them. And then you can see here as well, the crease has been maintained. Just because we've smoothed it, doesn't mean we lose that crease function. It's still actually here. So when I smooth it again, we'll jump up, we're going to times everything by 4, we're going to get even smoother, but we're still maintaining those nice sharp angles. And then I can get rid of those edges again. Bye. And then I can even think about areas like this here. Maybe this is getting too smooth, too dense. Then I can be like, okay, well, I don't need this amount of faces inside here. I can take every other edge away. So I can take this one, skip one, this one, skip one, this one, skip one. You know, super quick to do that. And we're still maintaining a nice smooth ring around here. Now, I've not actually got proxy smooth turned on. I've not got subdivision turned on. It still looks really smooth. You can't really see, so that was proxy smooth turned on with subdivision mode turned on. That's with it off, that's with it on, that's with it off. You can't really tell, which is brilliant. But I'm going to knock it up just one more time, just to kind of get this nice smooth density. So yeah, hit it one more time with that smooth, bang. And again, just go around and take away all these edges that I do not need. And this is optimization. This is, whenever you hear the term optimization in 3D modeling, it's basically this. It's getting rid of stuff that you don't need, things that are basically making the mesh unnecessarily dense. Mm-hmm. It really does depend on the studio. I just realized my microphone sounded a little bit bad now. My microphone was facing away from me a second ago. It depends entirely on the studio. It depends entirely on the person. It depends entirely on the product. What I've noticed with like automotive design, they tend to go in higher poly at first because they're dealing with stuff that's more mathematical. So they have a lot of control over, the curves are all calculated through maths. Um, so that they can literally kind of lay in these curves in space, knowing that they're going to trace certain forms, and then they can basically say, right, build 1,000 faces within that area. Um, Generally, you would always start off with some sort of base mesh, but also the term low poly can be different for different people. Some people would hate to work with a cube. They'd want to jump into something a little bit more complex because they're feeling like they don't need that initial stage of, super low poly. So generally, we do deal with a very, very low poly version of something and then build it up from there. But sometimes depending on the on just the industry, it might be different, and the person's skill. Obviously, as well, if you're doing stuff in ZBrush, you tend to be working at a naturally higher level anyway. Rarely would I start off something in ZBrush as a cube with 6 sides. I might start it off with a sphere with 1,000 faces. But in ZBrush, that's very, very low because it's a different kind of process of working. Yeah. But yeah, that's then the ring done. Super, super simple. We basically just do the same thing. Oh yeah, for this one down here as well. For the ring at the bottom, I literally just delete that one and copy this one. If there's not too much difference, you can just copy this one and then make any adjustments. Because for instance, if the ring that's on the bottom is a little bit deeper, well, we're still working with very, very nice geometry here where I could grab, say, these bottom faces here and pull them down. I could grab this edge here and bring it up. It's not like really weird geometry. It's all like double clicks around edges to select a whole ring, or face, shift, double click the one next to it in the direction you want to go. Just like that. So yeah, it'd be same thing with the main body, except there's just a little bit more in this one to think about. So I've got my example here. So when I'm doing this as well, I'm always in that smooth mode. I'm pressing 3, so I can see what's actually smoothing off, what's not smoothing off. Now looking at the reference as well, and just kind of trying to think about stuff, I was thinking, well, the outside of these lugs here, I wouldn't mind being a little bit smoother, but the inside where the pole is, I wouldn't mind that being quite sharp. So you can actually see what I've creased as well by the thick blue lines. That's literally what I've creased. So in this case, what I've done is I've gone around and creased this bevel at the top, the inside here. I've made like a little interior, tiny bit of an inset. So again, I beveled those so they're nice and sharp. I beveled, not beveled, sorry, creased, not beveled. I creased the joining line between these 2 points here, not really for any reason. I just kind of did it. It wasn't really anything. Like I said, I did the inside here, did the bottom of here. It's very easy as well. If I decide, you know what, I don't like that, I can literally just come in with that crease tool selected and drag to the left, and it decreases the curve. So I'm like, yeah, I don't like the way that's working here. Just take it away. And also, big piece of advice on this one. Oh, actually, I don't know. I'm saying this, and I'm actually thinking, can you will it duplicate the crease? Yes, it does duplicate the crease. So you could even work on like 1/4. And that should, yeah, it remembers all the creases. Yay, Maya. But even then, doing that, as long as you know what the edges are going to be on one look, you just copy it onto the other ones. And then from there, we do this add smooth, take away the faces we don't want, add smooth. Except for this one, I was a little bit more kind of aware, or I was being more aware of the faces I was taking away, or the edges I was taking away. Because there are some areas that I kind of want to maintain that nice smooth curve, like across here. But then some areas like here, where it doesn't necessarily matter. So when I was doing this, I was just keeping an eye on that. Also, I'm looking around the radius here. I do not want to disrupt this. I don't want to have like anything like that going on, where I've got an uneven distribution of edges. So anything I do, I'm always kind of looking to make sure that, yes, I'm maintaining that nice, regular kind of dispersion of edges. Super simple, though, again. So I hit it with a, come out of smooth mode, hit it with a smooth. Okay, I have a look what's going on. This one that goes around the middle here, I don't think you actually need that one. Get rid of that. What about everything else? Okay, look at this edge here, that's not doing anything. Actually, yeah, that is doing something, because that traces to here. So we'll leave that one alone. But this one here goes all the way around. We'll take rid of that one, yeah. So again, looking for all those angles aren't being affected. Goes away. What about underneath? Well, that's the same thing here. We're at those edges there. Okay. And then another one. I think I did two on this one. two smoothings. Okay. So is that going all the way around? That is going all the way around and it's not doing anything. That one's going all the way around, so that one can go away. It's not doing anything. I wouldn't worry about anything like this as well. What might look like really horrible, I wouldn't worry about it. I've actually made a mistake on mine that I've noticed just before. I actually took away edges here. I took away them edges. I shouldn't have done that. That was me just kind of not being aware of what I was doing. But yeah, like boom, done. Because when we render this, it's automatically going to smooth anyway. Like naturally within the rendering process, it's going to apply this proxy smooth to it. So we're going to go from this to this. Now again, you can't really see that much difference between this and this. So, boom, we're done. And then we end up with this. So you know, pretty simple process. We have our model here. Again, it's awesome that we're dealing with something that's kind of very closely based around a primitive. And then we basically hit 3 to smooth it. Decide the edges that we want to maintain that sharpness on. Select those edges. Crease. And especially for the lugs, I do it on just one of them first to make sure that looks good. And then basically copy what you've done on the others. So like where it adjoins the actual main ring, I definitely want to smooth that off. Oh, sorry, crease that off. Yeah, definitely want to have that there creased. Boom. And definitely the bottom of it as well. Yeah. So you basically go around like that. Crease off all the edges you want to maintain sharp. So you might want some edges to actually smooth off though, and that's totally cool. And then we'll be left with, you know, however you break it down. And as you go in, like I said before, you would look at the edges you've been given in that new smoothness and think, well, is that doing anything? You know, if I, you know, is that edge doing anything? Is that edge doing anything? If not, get them away. Or even if the edge is doing like a really, really tiny little bit of movement. If you delete it and you don't really see the difference, just get rid of it. And you're off with that. Yeah. Very, very simple. Now, pretty much we do the exact same. I've done the exact same thing for the straps as well. So I've gone through. I didn't actually do any creasing on this one, to be honest. I just literally took the straps, hit it with 2 smoothness. I think I did two bits of smoothing on this. And they gave me this, and I was perfectly happy with it. I did come into like here and take away some edges because it didn't need to be that smooth around here because it's only going to be very small. Yep. And those are the only things that need smoothing. Nothing else needs smoothing because everything we've been modeling at a relatively high resolution anyway. So all this we don't need to worry about. It's only the strap and like the main body. So we can relax on that one. So it's only these 2 bits we need to worry about. Oops. So, is there anything in that which you could do with just re-explaining? If you want to have a practice, literally a cube is the best example of this smoothing thing because we have a cube, we hit 3, it turns into a ball. But if we start smoothing some of these edges, I keep saying smoothing, sorry, I didn't mean smoothing, creasing. The opposite of smoothing. We crease them, we can get back that particular corner. So we can, you know, get a bit of an idea of what's going on with it like that. And obviously pressing 1 to come out of that smooth mode. Ooh, don't do that. Right. So UVing. Well, UVing for this was a little bit time consuming. It took me about 45 minutes to get everything down to where I've got it at the minute. But that's obviously me knowing exactly what I'm doing. It was just a little bit time consuming with having to do a few things over and over again. The same kind of process. But the things I was doing weren't necessarily like the big jobs. It was just like I had to cut a lot of finicky areas, like especially in the strap. I had to make sure that all the insides were, if I bring up the UVs actually, I had to make sure that like all the insides were cut here. That all the edges went all the way around. That bits were cut. You know, it was all just kind of like housekeeping stuff. Just took a little bit of time. That's all. But doing this stuff is really damn simple. There are some areas of this, some elements of this, which are ludicrously simple. I'll just copy everything. Okay, so these should all be, and obviously these would be positioned correctly. Well, I've just been obviously UVing them where I've got them in space. Okay, cool, that's everything. So let's start off with the really, really simple stuff, the cogs and stuff. These, you don't need to do any unwrapping outside of just doing a y-axis projection on these, just like that. Yeah, because these are going to be small. We're not going to be getting like inside really. We're not going to be like looking all like super crazy angles like this. And even if we are, or even if we get close to something like that, there's going to be a lot of stuff in the area, so we don't need to worry about that too much. All we need to do is just do a y-axis projection, and just make sure that each individual one is in its own little zone, like that. What I did with this down here, because it's got all those individual kind of sections there, is I just, where is it? There it is. I grab these. I kind of arranged them together in like a little cluster. And then this the main ring here, I just put like one of the cogs inside there, again to save space, because all the inside of this would be wasted space if I didn't use it. So why don't I put a cog inside there? Yeah, I really don't want to spend too long on this one, because it's going to be, it's just this. It's not going to be difficult at all to do this bit. Yeah, so that can be very, very simple. The other simple bits are going to be pretty much the same kind of complexity, but we're just going to break stuff up a little bit more, because they're going to be more front facing. I'd really want to make sure that we don't have any kind of artifacts or anything that might go wrong with these ones. I'm not too concerned with these cogs, but what I'm talking about is stuff like this kind of stuff, the dials and the time indicators and stuff. Again, all I've done is a planar projection just to lay them out, but because these are all pretty much, we've got a face which is predominantly a face which is facing upwards and a face which is facing downwards. I've actually got everything, and a face which is facing downwards I've just cut off and put to the side. So for instance, these hands like here, I'll go for you actually over here, this one, all this face which is underneath it, I just select the edge, select all around basically the outside circumference, as well as the end pin, cut it, or Shift X, boom, like that. And then I've just hit this with an unfold 3D. Again, I'm not too fussed about this being a really, really technically perfect unwrap, because we're just going to be applying like a very generic gold or a brass texture to it. It doesn't need the UVs that would be needed for something that was going to be like, you know, intricate design on it or something like that. We don't need that sort of stuff. So, you know, just hitting this with a unfold 3D, bang, flip this, and this one's done. Like that. Rather simple. And yeah, all these same kind of hands can be done the exact same way. This exactly the same way. We just cut the lower section underneath, basically just face underneath here. Cut that off. Dead simple. Go around, double clicking all those edges to select them. Now mine is really nice. Just as long as you get this tool turned on inside the UV editor, it's like the little white box with 4 green boxes on the inside. That'll show you with a white line where you've got texture borders. So if you find that you like, okay, yeah, I'm happy with that, I'm going to move it, but then it either doesn't move, or like something is still attached to it, it moves away with it like a smear, there's obviously something wrong with it. And sometimes if we've not got this turned on, if it is just kind of like flat blue lines like this, it's sometimes hard to see, like, you know, where it 90% of the time you've not cut an edge, or at least with me anyway, I've not cut an edge somewhere, I've missed like a small edge or something. But if we turn this on, I can look around, I can be like, oh, okay, or I can look around here in 3D, I can be like, oh, okay, yeah, I've not cut that edge, so I'll need to go in and cut that one. Like there. So thinner blue line at the tip there, so I'll be like, oh yeah, cut that. And then I should be able to remove those two, yeah, flip that. The same for these ones as well, just like keeping these 5 faces on top together is totally cool, and just cutting off the faces at the bottom. like all these faces at the bottom here, cutting them off. Now in the like when I was doing mine before, I was being really kind of like perfectionist about it. What I did was I arranged them all so they were standing up straight by I'll do it on these ones. Yeah. So let's cut away all those faces first. So this is really simple to do as well. So I'm just going to go through, select all the faces, these red faces underneath. I could also do it by edge, but you know, you could also do this by face in this particular case because I'm cutting off this entire face group. So I can just kind of select the faces, again, Shift X or cut, so cut. There we go. I should now be able to move all these away. Now, one thing that's going to be really helpful for us as well is we've basically modeled everything. Oops, I've no movement. We've modeled everything, or we've rotated everything using very, very specific units of rotation. As you're holding J for Juliet, and rotating stuff around, then you know we were rotating stuff around in 15-degree increments. So to get these aligned perfectly, it's super simple, very, very simple. Literally all we have to do is in face mode, just grab the element we want to move, literally in rotation, because obviously rotation still works as it does inside the UV editor. Hold J. There you go. Hold J. Hold J. Hold J. So you see they're all rotating around in 15-degree increments that allow me to actually get these looking perfectly straight. And I'm being super kind of like pedantic here, making sure that they're all facing the exact same orientation. So all the outsides, oh, it would be the outsides of the pegs are facing upwards, and all the insides are facing downwards. Because then I can arrange it, and it really doesn't matter how you arrange these. Let's bring them up. Being neat with them is good. I'm holding X, snap to grid, to get these in like a nice order. But again, it's me being like very neat. I like neat UVs. And I could also, you know, just bring them close together because space is something we want to use as much as possible of. So I can just move them all closer together. And there's only 12 of them, so it's not like there's a million as well to do. This is the thing that takes up most of the time as well. It's just arranging stuff. There you go. And then all I've got left is the back faces of stuff. I could put them in a corner somewhere. They're not going to be seen anywhere. But again, me being a little bit more, I like cleanness, I like cleanliness, I like order in my UVs. I could literally just sew these back onto here at the bottom, for instance. So I could be like, okay, I'm going to sew them all back onto here, like there. So I can see if I can see them 3 there have been selected. So go across, boom, 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 boom. So this is just in edge mode. Move and sew, cut and sew, move and sew, bang, boom. Looks like a bit like a piano. And then they're done. All good. And yeah, I can do the same for them. And that's literally, that's it for them. because these are all facing upwards, mainly. You know, the bottom faces, we just want those separate, so again, we don't have any baking issues, we don't have any rendering issues. But the underside of stuff, it's so inconsequential for us that we can literally just kind of like put them off to one side. So I wouldn't bother about sewing the bottom sides of the hands back onto like the main. I'd just leave them to the side like I've done here. And then after that, it's all about just making sure everything's arranged neatly, making sure we're using the space as much as possible. Tiny bit more complex is this. So I've pretty much done the exact same thing for this. If I ruin the UVs, all I did was just do a y-axis planar projection, because this is where it's facing. But I don't want to have the back face possibly influencing what's going on in the front face. So I cut this off the same way I did before. Now the only way this is more complex is just because there's more edges to cut. So I go around. And this actually caught me out before as well, because it wasn't... well, I'll show you what happened. So I did this, I went, cut. And I wasn't paying attention. And then when I tried to move it, so I was like, I'm only trying to select that top face, but it's grabbing the other side as well, because it's nothing's been cut. Something's not been cut. So I went on a bit of an investigation. I found that, okay, it's this area here. So I need to go in here and... Oh, cutting using Shift X only works when your mouse is over the top of the UV editor. It won't do anything if you're in here, if you're hovering over the 3D viewport. So that's why you might see my mouse kind of jump. Can you see my mouse? Cool. That's why you see my mouse kind of jumping over here a lot. It's because I'm doing cuts. So yeah, it's just Shift X. It's such a nice little clocky. Now that should be able to be... No. Something is still... Oh, yeah, there you go. It's just pies in the... Oh, no. What? Oh, the very outside. Clock on, Dave. There we go. There we go. Right, cool. Now, all I want to do for this back face is flip it so it's facing the right direction. Or facing the right... It's blue. I'm just going to make it small and put it in a corner. Because this isn't going to have anything on it. Again, this isn't going to be seen. But I just want to make sure that this isn't going to be influencing what's going on here. Because again, in the rendering, it might say, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to bias this face over this face. So all the shadow might appear on the front, which is going to be rubbish. So we just want to make sure we're splitting stuff apart. Now, this does have depth as well. This does have depth around here. Don't worry about it. Literally, that's all we need. I wouldn't worry about this. Because we could come in here and do the unfold 3D just to show all those other faces off. Like that. It changes the shape a tiny bit though. And I'm not super mad keen on that. But that's fine, because these are going to be so thin anyway. It's all good. Boom. And then this is the other hardest bit of this whole thing, but not really. All I've done here, all I've been thinking about is, again, I don't want to have anything overlapping, but I want to have it as, what am I trying to say? I don't want anything overlapping. So what I did was I basically selected everything. So again, I'll destroy the UVs. There we go. So the UVs are destroyed now. I basically just grabbed the middle faces going around everything. But I ignored this little area here. So all the faces on the outside as well. I got hold of those. So, so like here. I grabbed all these. Sorry, so something in my eye. Ooh, there we go. Yeah. So grab all these faces. Everything's on the outside. Oop. Yeah. I noticed as well, like I said before, I'm leaving these little bevels we made, these little insets. Now what I'm actually going to do as well is reverse the selection in a second. When I've selected all the faces that I want, I'm actually going to reverse the selection, so I'm not selecting what I've currently got. Is this the last one? Yeah. Yeah, let's grab all these. Now, we've gone over this before, how to do this, but just as a kind of refresh, if I want to basically reverse what I've got selected, and sometimes we need to do this because it's easier to select the things we don't want to work with, because maybe the things we do want to work with, things we want to actually have selected, just awkward selections, and it'll take us ages to select stuff, but the areas we don't want to work with are easy selected. So now what I do is if I hold shift and drag a box over everything, it's going to reverse the selection. So now I grab everything else. It's much easier to work with, much easier to select. And I'm just going to do a y-axis planar projection. Boom, like that. Just like that. And then we've got obviously the rest of this, the UVs to do in a sec. What I can do, and what I've not done in the one I showed you before, is I can do what I've done with the main face. I can have my main kind of body of UVs that are going to be seen be nice and big, and the ones that are on the back face or something which aren't going to be seen, I can have them small. All I've got to do is just grab the ones that are going to be facing in the right direction. In this case, it's actually these faces because this is the bottom, but you don't really matter, to be honest. Because we can always change the direction of the geometry very, very easily. But I can just go around and UV shell, grab all the faces that I want to work with. I have to do that one on the inside. Oh no. Yeah, so I grab all the faces that are on top. I can just move those to the side a sec. These ones, which are my kind of faces, which I don't really want, I can flip and make them small for now. Put them away somewhere. Now, everything else, yeah, everything else, I can just run a automatic projection on. Do that. There might be a few. Oh, actually, you know what? Yeah. See, this is one of the tricky things, and don't worry about kind of fully kind of understand what's happening here because it's been recorded. Now, because I've done a planar projection from the y-axis, some of the faces here, because they're perpendicular to the camera, they're facing essentially away from it, don't get caught up in the projection, which I don't really mind. But you can see here where they're red. Not really that fussed about that, but they're getting treated like these faces here. So that's just a bit of an issue. But it just means that I've got to go around and, like I did before, by selecting the things on the outside and on the inside, kind of wrapping around. I just got to do that again. Which is a pain, but hey. And again, like I said before, this is the thing that takes the most amount of time. It's just the selecting of stuff. And it's why a lot of people don't like UVing, because it's just a lot of mindless clicking. Let's try this one. Yep. Right, yeah. Without all those horrible faces selected again, yeah. Automatic projection, lays them out like this. I wouldn't worry about this. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be really cheap with it. I'm going to find out all the faces that are going to be on the outside, because these faces aren't going to be seen. But again, it's them faces that we want to have in there so there's no light bleed. So I'll go through, again, holding right click, go to UV shell. I can just go around and grab all these on the outside. That's it. Yeah, I believe that's it. Those are all the outside faces, I believe. Yes. Because then again, I'm going to make these small. I'm not really going to care about these ones too much. But what's left behind, what I can just do is go around. Don't worry about this as well, where it's like grey and blue at the same time. This is literally just a little bit of a visual bug in my... Nothing's actually happening here. In places where, like here, this should be one continuous piece. But because of how the projections worked, it's split it across this one line. So anywhere where it's not kind of like a massive angle or a massive angle change, I can just sew these back together just to kind of make sure there's no obvious texture seams in like here, like there, because this is all part of like one curve. Like this big curve here, there's one in the middle, so I can go grab that, sew that together. But I might want to cut across areas like this because that's quite a big, that's a 90-degree angle change, so we definitely want to cut across there, because you always want to, your texture borders or the texture breaks should always break across like 60-degree angles, or you have these like really nasty kind of texture seams, or these like areas of the text which kind of look a bit nasty. So yeah, I'm just going around and looking for those, or looking for areas where I'm like, well, those could be actually be, you know, those could be put back together, like here, like this. They're part of the same curve. Move that back together. Oh, separate. Put that out. Make it again. Because when I've done all this, arranging everything out is really simple because there's a function we can use for that. That isn't perfect, but it gives us something we can work with, and we can arrange it and kind of fix it if we do need to. But generally, with this sort of work, like, you know, more mechanical, industrialized work, if the UVs are laid out, or if the UVs are, the textile density between the UVs, basically the different sizes, are the same, but that's fine. You don't have to worry too much about, like with characters, we need things to be orientated in the right position. We need things to be, there's all these rules of character UVing that we need to follow. With this sort of stuff, you don't. As long as everything's like the right textile density, and the UV seams are in the right area, just, yeah, that's about it. That's all you need to worry about. Cut there. And in my mind's eye as well, when I'm working, well, like what I've decided what to cut or what not to cut. The angle is a big one. So like if the angle is definitely more than like 60 degrees or something, I put a cut. But also, where would I see the light breaking attractively? So I'm seeing the light breaking here quite attractively. So if I put a texture seam in there, that gives us something to break across, because the texture isn't continuing. Break across there, break across there, break across there. Break. This is what I always tell people about UVing is, like when you get comfortable with it, when you start to understand it, it's a very simple process to do. It just takes a bit of time because it's just a jigsaw in space. And then we're back to square one. Right, this one. You're all good. You're all good. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. I've made up my way around. Oh, all these little boys here. What are you? Oh, you're absolutely sort onto there. So just like with optimization, what I want to do is bring down the amount of UV islands I've got to a point. I don't want to try and make everything one UV island. But if I've got little floating things like this, I'm thinking, well, I could probably fit those back onto somewhere. So this, where do you live? Oh God, missed you. Maybe there, definitely. There's a few that I've missed. Oh, do a save because ABS. Always be saving. Okay, so there's a few of these little internal curves I've missed, but I'm catching them because I'm having a look at the UV sheet while I'm here. So right, so that's, we've got this left over. Now, if you want to maintain this shape with the way it is, totally cool. It just means you've got to kind of like arrange everything else around it. But what I did before is I grabbed everything and I came up to modify, down to layout, and then the option box of this. And I didn't do anything in here except for this, the layout settings. It don't really matter about the texture size. The padding unit, pixels, it just, because it makes more sense in pixels in my head. It's these two boxes, shell padding and tile padding, that I change the numbers in. By default, they're set to 0, which means that that all the UVs end up touching each other, which isn't great because we do want to have a little bit of space around each other to give everything breathing room, to give everything a chance to, negating any chance of overlapping or anything like that. Oops. Sorry, there we go. Yeah, chance of any overlap or anything like that. So shell padding, this is the amount of pixels between each one of these UV islands. So the minimum amount of pixels between each one of these islands. So if I put in 5, that's going to be a 5 pixel difference on a 1024 texture sheet between each one of these. So if I do this again, everything's got a little bit more breathing room around it. Now tile is distance between a texture island and the actual frame of the texture. So where the black box is. Now again, what I would do is allow a little bit of breathing room. I might put 5 in there as well. There we go. Oh. Now this is the issue that I have. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't work well. It's laid it out and it's technically laid everything out fine, but it's not using the space as much as we could do. So I might come in here and I might rearrange some stuff. I might actually manually arrange some stuff that it's just getting a bit wrong. Or I might change the padding for this. So because I used 5 on that shell padding, maybe I'll change that to 10. There you go. So that's a bit nicer, bit of a nicer layout. Still not perfect. If you arrange your own texture sheets, if you arrange your own islands, it's a lot more work involved, but it's a lot more controllable. If you use anything like the layout, then it will be a bit faster, but you're not going to be able to control it as much. But if you kind of use them together, if you use the layout and then you go in there and you do your own thing with it, you kind of adjust it, then you can get a really nice mix of the two. But we have still got some extra space here. We can just put these extra bits in here, so we can grab this, bring this in, put it somewhere like here. Grab you. Like that. And grab all you. What I can do is let's arrange by. Yeah. And then they're laid out. Again, because we're not going to be doing any sort of like crazy intricate engraving or anything like that, we don't need perfect UV layouts like we would do with characters or something, because we're going to have mechanical etchings which are going to be very, very easy to do. The light is going to break across very sharp angles which are created through the mechanical process, so we don't need to worry about anything like that. So that's good. That is the most complex part, by the way. That is the most complex element, because there's all them different angles we've got to deal with. Anything about that you I could do with the re-explain about that? Yeah? No worries. Go. Now the last one, pretty damn simple, but because of the size of it, and because it's one of the main pieces, I did decide to break this up into 2 chunks, into 2 different texture sheets, because I didn't want to risk these 2 things being condensed down too small and it would be affecting the texture and all that sort of jazz. So how I've broken this down is the rings plus the lugs in one texture sheet, and then basically the main body in another. And even though these are going to be broken up into something very, very simple anyway, like we've got the outside, there's these 2 rings. The inside, there's these 2 rings. the top in this quarter up here, and the bottom down there. Now this does have a little bit of an odd little kind of step to it, because obviously these two bits aren't straight strips, they're rings. So naturally we would expect to see them like that. But like we've been saying in the past, circles don't fit into texture sheets super well. Or rings like this, because the interior is empty, and then like if I was just to do this like that, you know, the interior, this is empty, but then you got these really horrible triangles around the outside, which are just awkward to put stuff in. It's all right to put like little bits in, like little bits of whatever's in there, but you know, what am I going to do with the rest of the space? So I actually turned those into long strips, but that's okay, because by doing this we can actually create a I don't know, you got like we can create a effect, let's call it. You know, when you see like brushed metal, and you might see around the top of something, the brushed metal kind of like pattern goes in a circle. We can create that on this, but the pattern on the texture sheet would be going in just linearly across like that. But because this is a round shape in the real world, it looks like it's a circle. It looks like it's like, you know, radial brush marks. Also, it's just neater, a lot neater. You can see it does kind of look a little bit funky in the checkerboard. But yeah, these are really, really simple to do as well. We'll be using we'll be using the cylindrical unwrap and the automatic unwrap on this one. So cylindrical is the second one, like, well, the cylinder piece of paper, and the automatic is obviously our little cube thing there. Because some elements of this are going to be automatic, some elements of this are going to be cylindrical. So I'll destroy the UVs. I'll move them out of the way. I'll go from basically square one. So, just like with everything to do with UVing, what is the most simplest element? What is the most simplest part of this? What can I do first? Well, for me, the simplest part of this is the inside, because it's a fairly regular shape. There's no, like on the outside, we've got these interruptions from the lugs. The lugs are interrupting the cylindrical shape, but on the inside, it's a very, very cylindrical shape. And what I'm going to do, as per usual, is I'm not going to care about what's going on here. And I'm basically going to select what I can inside 3D, project that. It's then obviously going to be removed from this mess. And eventually what we're going to have is a bunch of faces that I could literally just grab as one big group and then do whatever I need to do. Maybe it's the last bit, maybe it's this bit. And I can just grab them all at the same time because they're, you know, right there. So I will grab the interior here and I will, like that, and I'll just do cylindrical unwrap. Cylindrical unwrap like that. So click it like that. It gives me this. It's not a perfect unwrap, because if you look at the checkerboard, it's very squished. Very, very squished. But in all of these pieces that are cylindrical, I'm going to do the vertical legacy unfold. So modify, unfold, legacy. I'm going to do vertical, because I don't mind the width of the object. If I do this horizontal, it's going to get really wide. But if I do this in vertical, and I should be doing this in UV mode as well, not face mode. There you go. If I do this in vertical, you know, there you go. And now all my faces are perfectly laid out. Super simple. So I can leave that as it is for the time being. Because also I'll cut this up to fit inside the texture sheet properly as well. The next bit is going to be the outside. So all the outside section, bar the lugs. So let's just go in there, grab what we can as big selections, which is probably just going to be that. Can I grab that? Yeah. And the rest of it I can do a paint selection with. So paint selection. And then just carefully go around. And if I over select anything, it's fine. I can just deselect it later on. There's going to be a lot of faces selecting this, so paint selection is your best mate. And also, I'm naturally just kind of looking out for if I overselect anything while I'm moving around. Like for any orange faces that shouldn't be there. Select the faces that are left. Oops. No. Yeah, and I'll look underneath. Nothing is selected down there, which is fine. Cool. And then, pardon me. Again, cylindrical unwrap. Bang. UV mode, modify, unfold. It's going to be the same option. It's going to be the same setting, but just make sure it's legacy, vertical unfold. Like that. Oh, done. Just check the checkerboard. Yeah. For now, what I can do, again, just to kind of clear this space, I can grab the top and bottom bits and kind of do a temporary UV for these ones, just to clear the space. Because again, that's something I might do is if I know something's going to be very simple, like this, a simple shape, but I just don't want to work in it right now, then I'll just grab it and I'll like do an automatic unwrap just to lay it out so I can just kind of move it to the side. Because again, I'm clearing out this space. What's left? Okay, so I've got my rings and I've got my lugs. So let me just move my rings kind of into place properly. Yeah. My rings are actually done very, very simply. I'm going to do these with a cylindrical unwrap. However, when I do them, so I'll do my cylindrical unwrap like that. It's not the best shape because it's not actually got like a seam. It has got a seam here, but it's not got a proper seam. A seam that I can properly unfold. Because if I try and do that legacy unfold now, it's gonna look funky. It can't unfold itself because it's not like it's like a piece of wrapping paper essentially on a tube. Like the pages have been merged together. But what I need to do is basically put a cut in it so I can unfold it. So I do the projection, so I lay it out like this. But then I'm going to then look around my actual model and think, okay, where can I put a seam where it's going to be the least visible? It's not going to be seen at all. Okay. Well, for me, it's looking like there. Because that's going to be like on the interior of the watch. The face is going to be kind of interacting with this area. It's not going to be seen that much. So I can just put a cut there. So Shift X or cut and so cut. Make sure it's... There you go, I've got that white line going across the bottom. And now, when I go to modify unfold, that should give me a perfect unfold. Yeah. Because it's a ring. It's basically a cylinder. So I can start off with a cylindrical unwrap to get me somewhere, and then I can think, okay, what do I need to do to achieve the best results, or what can I do to then do the next stage? The next stage for that would be to put a seam in to allow it to actually properly unfold. So then I do the same thing on the other one, on the bottom one. cylindrical unwrap. UV mode. Find that cut, which is probably going to be in the same position. Cut. Unfold. Bang. Yeah. Check the checkerboard. And now this mess should just be the lugs, which it is. Yeah. So the lugs, because they're not quite a normal shape, I did just a automatic unwrap to see what I got. Sometimes if I'm like unsure about what's going to happen or what I should do for the unwrapping stage, I'll hit that with like an unfold, an automatic projection, and it gives me something, and then I can decide what to do from there. Or it might just be a way for me to lay stuff out and visually see what I'm dealing with before I move on. So what I come up with, the way I kind of figured out how to do these was to think, okay, yeah, again, I'm going to have to put some seams in this, or there's going to have to be some seams in this to, because it's this, you know, it's a texture map, there are going to be seams in it. Where can I put the seams? And where can I hide seams? Where can I avoid seams, which are going to be, if I do have a seam in somewhere, it's going to look really ugly. Well, for me, basically this area here, I want to avoid any seams because that's outward facing to the audience, and also it's a smoother surface. So I don't want to avoid seams in there. However, I do end up putting a seam in this area, kind of, for a reason. And I test that on one of them. You know, I grab all the UV shells related to one particular lug, and I'll test it out on this one. And then when I'm happy, I'll literally copy and paste. Well, I say copy paste. I do exactly the same thing on the other bits. So, what do I want to do? Okay, right. I want to put the seams in this area all together. So all like the white faces or the white edges here, let's sew them all together because this is the area, like I said, that I want to avoid any seams. So I'll cut those together. And I'll also be hitting it from time to time with Unfold 3D. Okay. Well, that's basically three faces, or three kind of planes put together, because that's the top plane, top group of faces, the side plane, and the front plane. What are the other two bits? I've got this bit here and this bit here. Well, how can I do that? Same thing, I kind of want to think, well, this edge here, if I could avoid it not having a seam, that's great, because this edge here, specifically this edge here, is going to be facing into the arm, probably the most amount of anything, because the bar for the strap's going to be here. It's going to be facing into the wrist anyway, so it's facing into the object, so I could put a seam there, easy mode. So I'll put a seam, so all the other edges, I'll sew them together. Like that, and then I'll hit it with a 3D. Okay. It works. I'll have to go to the checkerboard. Yeah, it's kind of working. It kind of gets a little bit smaller and a little bit more condensed down here, and it opens up a little bit over the front here. That's, you know, I could technically use this, but it can be nicer. It could be nicer. And the areas where it could be nicer are areas that, depending on how you've modeled it anyway, areas that would originate from its base kind of shape, its base primitive. Now, again, this is going to be recorded, so don't worry about trying to understand everything I'm doing. But whenever you see this intersection of three edges, this is a right angle corner of a cube. It's right there. Yeah. So when I smooth this, you know, we have that right angle corner of a cube. Now, things about cubes are they're really easy to unfold if we just think about everything, all these edges, like this, and this, being a hinge, or one of them being a hinge. There we go. It's like this face here. If I was to unwrap this face, well, I'd want to allow it to kind of unfold. I want it to lay out nicely. Well, I can't necessarily unfold it because it's tight. It's sewn onto all these different edges. But if I was to cut 4 of these edges, or 2 or 3 of these edges, depending, maybe these edges here, these faces don't exist. Maybe they're not actually on the model. Whatever. If I cut those, but then I fold it out like that, and this is a 3D representation of what's happening in the UV spreadsheet. Now that's going to allow this whole section to relax nicely, and it's going to allow this section to relax nicely. Well, same thing here. What's going to happen here when I try and unfold this? This is going to try and come out. This is going to try and come out and relax, but then it's all going to be tied together, so we're going to get some really awkward faces in the UV. Same thing. What if I cut a face in the UV so it allows it to fold? Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking stress off an object. So relating to this, luckily I have one of those corners. I have this right here. This. And if I cut this edge specifically, what it's going to do is it's going to release these faces from this particular edge and these faces from this particular edge, so they can relax. So that's cool. But then where else is it connecting to? Well, if I look at my spreadsheet here, it's kind of I can't really cut it because it's still being sewn in from all this area. Like there's no area for it to actually open up from. So I'm actually going to cut across here instead as well. So I'm going to allow the bottom face to fold out. So I cut there. And I cut there. And now when I hit that with an unfold 3D, we get this, which is much nicer. The faces are a lot more regular, or the checkerboard is a lot more regular. And I can basically just copy and paste the exact same thing I've done there. Either literally do the steps I did then, sew everything together, then make the cuts and unfold it, or try and basically put all these cuts together. It don't really matter. No, if I knew ahead of time what edges are going to be cut, I could literally just cut the edges and sew the edges I need to together in here right away. But just to kind of like be super OTT about it, I was like, okay, I'll sew everything together like I did before. And I'm going to make sure that that's cut and that's sewn on. I missed a piece. Oh yeah, missed that bit. Boom. There we go. There we go. So even though they're kind of mirrored, they're the same now. Do something on the other side. side. Cut here. Oh. So the bottom bit on there. Yeah. Cool. So the bits that are needing to be sewn on. Yeah. So that on. So there. So that bit on. Peel and unfold. Right. Cool. So now all those are done. Now the thing now, the process now, because everything's unfolded. Everything's unfolded. I mean, the straps are the last thing to do, but all I've done for those is literally planar projected them from the top, cut them down the middle, and then obviously cut them down the middle on the inside here, and then unfolded them. That's all I did with them. So the thing to do for these now is, especially for this, is to think, right. Oh, no, I've not done these, have I? Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So yeah, these rings, these problematic rings here. Okay, so do a sec. This is one of the other relatively simple bits, but if you're not told about it, you'll never know about it, and it can look a little bit weird and a bit strange at first. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these into straight strips. And it's the same process for each of them. And it's only like 2 or 3 steps in it. So I'll do the simple one first. I'll do just this simple ring. Grab this. And actually clear out, because it's going to kind of, this bit's going to get a bit messy in a sec. Right, I'm going to grab this, and if I go up to modify and then unitize with any object, regardless of its topology or whatever, if I go up to this, select this, modify, unitize, it's going to take every one of those faces, turn it into a square, and lay them on top of each other there. So every one of these faces is now here. Which you're thinking, well, that's useless. But what I can do is if I select all the edges around there, and then unselect the edge that I want to be a seam, which is going to be this one, because it kind of follows on from here. And if our seams are all in the same place, we're good. And I move and sew, so in cut and sew, move and sew, ooh, that turns into a strip, which is super nice. But it makes it very, very big. And then all I need to do on this one is just modify, unfold. In this case, horizontal unfold. Or I can, if I want to rotate around so it's lengthways, horizontal. Sorry, vertical. I guess I need to just scale it out manually. Actually, I need to do that. Yeah, do it manually. Like that. Now it's big, and that's a problem, but we'll fix that as well, because we're going to be cutting up a few things for reasons. Now I'm going to get the bottom one. That's the other problem child. Now the problem with this one is it's got triangles in some areas, and these triangles will initially cause us some issues, but if we sew these on last, these triangles, oh, in my case, I've got triangles anyway. You might not have triangles on yours. If not, super awesome. But in my case, I've got these triangles, which are going to be a bit of an issue. But if I sew them on last, it's less of an issue. So, same thing as before. Modify, unitize, bang. And I just select everything except the edges, which are going to be carrying on this seam. So as long as I'm aware of like that, I'm happy. Okay. Right, again. Moving so, cut and sew, moving so. I get this. Still a bit of an issue. But if I sew these back on, these little areas now. Oop. There we go. So I've just got to manually do this one myself. But it's not a big deal. Because the main thing I want, the main thing about this whole process is to get this long strip. As long as I've got that long strip in there, everything else is going to be really easy for me to fix. I just want to get this big long strip in there first. Let's make that small. You can see how big it is as well. It's huge. Okay. So I'll find these problem areas, which are the triangle areas. Like that. And I can just use like the alignment tool to fix these up. Or like a line and snap, move them upstairs. The other side, I think there's one more left. There it is. And I'm not really fussed about it. It sounds really kind of like filth for me to say it, but I'm not really bothered about these being a little bit janky in the geometry. As long as it's nice and strip-like like this, I'm not particularly bothered about what goes on the inside. Because these are going to be covered up. This is another example of a bit of geometry that is there to really complete the object and stop any light bleeding, but really we're never going to see it. So all we really need is efficient UVs that we can hide somewhere. Yeah, cool. Right then. Cool. Right now, these are all very, very long and big and kind of hard to fit inside our UV spreadsheet. Because if we did, they'd get too small. They'd shrink really small, and compared to everything else that goes on in the scene, these will be like really low textile density, which means the main body, the main thing, the main kind of hero piece of the scene hasn't got the same amount of detail that can be applied to it, which is a bit of a problem. However, we're dealing with symmetrical, even strips, and the really easy way to get around this is literally cut them in half, because that's obviously going to decrease the length of something, which means when we scale this down to fit inside the sheet, it's not going to need to scale down as far. Does that make sense? That kind of way of thinking? Yeah, cool. So with this one, like, boom, cut it in half. What are you? You're this. Okay, so as long as I can just find the middle. There we go. So I'm just using my manipulator there, and my manipulator, because also we're dealing with something that's got a vertical and horizontal line, the manipulator should be in the center of it. So I can just bang, like that. Like that. Bang, like that. Bang. Bang, like that. So now what I can do is grab these, and I think I might have, yeah, we've gone through this already, the normalize function, which basically you can grab a piece of UV and you can normalize it to the UV island, the UV sheet you're in at the minute, and it'll cram it in. It'll be nice. So I'll move that way just a sec. Make sure I'm moving them as a group so I know what I'm moving. There you go. And that function, there is one in modify, but it's exactly the same as down here, but this one that's in the UV toolkit has got some settings kind of pre-applied to it, which is really cool. Because if I was to come up here and use this one, so modify, normalize, the entire thing gets turned into a square. We lose our shape. It just becomes horrible. You know, maybe this is good for some projects, but for us, because we want to maintain the shape, it's not. However, if we use the one that's in the UV toolkit, which is at the bottom in align and snap, normalize, it keeps the ratio of the object, it keeps the shape of the object. It just kind of crams it into either, if it's a tall object, it'll cram it into the vertical kind of constraint, or if it's a wide object, it'll cram it into the horizontal constraint. But yeah, boom. And I'm going to move that up to the top. I say move that to the bottom. Go from the bottom this time. And again, we want to be very, very particular about, and I'm using that with the arrows as well, because I don't want to, this is a big one for texturing. I don't want to have it come away from this edge, because this, the way we're going to be texturing this, we're going to be using repeating textures. So what I want is when this texture comes over here and comes to here, it's going to then repeat over here. So I want to have these two kind of like be perfectly repeatable with each other. So I'm just going to move them up and down using the arrow instead. Boom. Again, just using that normalize tool again. Bring that in. Really cram it in. Giving them a little bit of space. Like that. Next one. Bring it over. Normalize. Yeah. How did I use the original way? So the way I've arranged them. Oh, okay, cool, right. So yeah, the two rings and the lugs I put together. So I was looking then thinking, I've really filled the space up. What have I done wrong? I've not done anything wrong. I'm just losing my way. So yeah, these would be filled up with these lugs. So I'd fit these lugs in the same space. But then everything else, which is part of the main body, so basically the rings, yeah, same thing. Put it here. Normalize. 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 Now I have to do these individually as well, because if I have multiple things selected, it'll normalize the selection instead of the individual components. So I do have to do this like piece by piece if I'm doing this. And arranging those so they're nice and close to each other. Because what I've not got in mind, but obviously you've got in yours, is the crown, you know, and the screws and stuff that you could absolutely include in here. Because obviously we've got like here little bits of space we could use. We've obviously got all this space here we could use. Like fit these in. One thing as well, we've arranging things like this in, because it's not quite as perfectly straight as these. What I would be looking for is a angle or an edge or something that I could say, okay, that's a flat edge I'm going to align to. So instead of like bringing it in where it's like in this angle or in like this angle, because it's got this longer edge here, I'd be like, okay, that's a nice straight edge. I can kind of rotate around to be nice and flat. Bring it in, and then start arranging them. Because at first I might think, oh yeah, that fits perfectly. Not really thinking that I've got to fit 3 more in here. So I can come in. Okay, these two need to be scaled down. And I can do the textile density on these actually. So transform textile density. All I'm trying to do is jigsaw them in together. Everything needs to be scaled down a little bit more again. Get that new textile density, apply it to everything else. Things have changed. Arrange these in together. So this is also a bulk of the work is effectively jigsawing stuff in. Which is why I always tell my students that jigsaws are great to do. Because you kind of naturally, you know, after you've done a good bunch of jigsaws, you'll naturally kind of have this, and not just jigsaws, you know, them kind of like shape puzzle games kind of thing. You'll naturally kind of start seeing the pattern in which you can fit stuff together. Boom, there we go. Yeah, bam. And with that, like I said, it took me 45 minutes to do this. And it's taken me however long that took me to do that then. It's all pretty simple to do. I would absolutely start off with the simplest stuff first of all. Start off with the really simple stuff like the cogs and the dials and stuff. You could, like I said before, if you find you've got enough space, you could absolutely fit these two groups together because they're going to be very bland materials. You know, you could fit a lot of the same kind of stuff together because it's all very much of the same kind of quality, and then everything else is going to be far more bespoke. This is obviously all the framework. This is obviously all the straps. This is the face with the little face in the corner. This is what we've just done. So yeah. So what time is it now? I'd say give yourself 10 minutes. Have a bit of a reflect on everything there. Think about if there's anything that you'd like me to kind of touch on again. And we'll slowly tackle through this today. Cool? Awesome. Right. And I will get this uploading